These are the Rokid Max glasses, and they are video glasses basically, a media consumption device. And when they're paired with a suitable Android phone, a laptop, an iPad, or a Steam Deck even, then they're capable of displaying a large 215-inch screen as if it was around 6 feet away from you. And this is the Rokid Station. And rather than pairing the glasses with a Android phone or an iPad, if you don't want to tie up those devices, then this is basically a self-contained unit which offers Android TV and access to the Play Store. So you've got hundreds of apps there, from media consumption apps such as Prime Video, YouTube, all the way to games such as GeForce Now and Steam Link as well. So you can play games, you can watch media, all from this little device here when it's paired with the Rokid Max glasses. I was sent these items for free to test out on the channel and make a few videos on in order to give my impressions, and that's what I'm going to do. This is going to be a first impressions video. I've had these for a few days now. I've used them quite a bit actually, but yeah, I've got a few thoughts on them, so let's get into it.
Immersed robot.
So this is a first impressions video, and as always I'm not going to script anything out, so it's going to be pretty much a train of thought really, but I have got a few points that I do want to hit on actually in this video, so I'll get into that first. And the first thing I want to get into is the fact that some people might refer to these as AR glasses, and really when you look up like the definition of AR, strictly speaking they are AR glasses, but they're not in the same level as something like Magic Leap 1 or anything like that is true AR glasses. These are video glasses. They display a screen in front of you, and that is really their job. That is what they're trying to do, and that is what they achieve. But they've got no contextual awareness of your surroundings in the same way that true AR glasses will have. And so they've got no 3 degrees of freedom or 6 degrees of freedom built into them. However, on the box it does actually say that it does include a 9-axis IMU, so presumably there is a way in order to get some kind of basic 3DOF with these glasses as well, and I believe that comes from utilizing it with something like an Android phone, a suitably high-spec Android phone. Now I've not got access to an Android phone, I'm an iPhone user, so I'm not able to try out the 3DOF thing even if it is capable of doing that, which I believe it can do in a limited capacity with the phone app. So I won't really be touching on that side of things in these first impressions anyway. But they also don't really have a very easy way of capturing output on these. So I'll show some sort of footage of me using these, but I can't really capture any output at all. So it's basically a display. So it is whatever you are viewing on your iPad or on your Steam Deck, that is what you will see. So you'll just have to rely on my incoherent descriptions of the experience of using these actually. But quickly, it's probably important that I go through a few of the basic specs of these glasses as well. So as I've mentioned, they offer a 215-inch screen at 60Hz or 120Hz. You can switch between those two modes. They have 2 micro OLED displays here, and they use what is called, I believe, birdbath optics. So they've got the OLED display in the top here, and it points down and then bounces off a mirror before it goes into your eyes. But the OLED displays are 1080p micro OLED displays, so they're very high quality actually, and I'll get into the image quality on these a little bit later on in the video. And they offer 600 nits of brightness, which is very, very bright, but it needs to be because they are obviously transparent optics as well. So in order to counterbalance something like the background light from your room in daytime, it needs to be a very bright display, and it is a very bright display, and I'll get into that a little bit later on as well. They're very light, they only weigh 75 grams, and they also include a dual independent diopter for eyesight correction, myopia correction, so they will correct for short-sightedness from 0 up to -6, independent per eye. They've got built-in audio into the arms as well. They are capable of HDCP, so you can watch something like Netflix on these no problem at all, and they are also capable of actually showing 3D SBS side-by-side or over-under movies as well, or 3D content. If you want to watch something on YouTube, or you've got some 3D movies on a file, then they're capable of displaying that in 3D as well. So that's just a few of the specs on this, but let me get into some of my impressions. Now, the image quality is exceptionally good. I've got to say, this is one of the first things I noticed. These micro OLED displays are fantastic in this headset. So I first noticed this actually because I went into my Steam Deck. That was one of the first things I wanted to try with these. So I went straight into the Steam Deck and I played a little bit of Doom 2016 very briefly in these. And then I took them out and then looked at the screen on the Steam Deck. And it was a shock. I know people have a problem with the screen on the Steam Deck anyway. It's an LCD display. It's not particularly high quality necessarily. It's not ultra high quality at least. And going from the real deep true blacks within this headset all the way back down to an LCD display on the Steam Deck was a shock to me. So I can confidently say that the image quality in these is fantastic. Now, of course, it's a display which is in front of you and it follows where you look. So as I mentioned, it's not got any 3DOF built in for Steam Deck or anything like that. So it just follows where you're looking and the display will always be in front of you. And so that means you do have to use your eyes quite a bit in order to look around the display. And you'll notice, at least I notice, I don't know if this will be better for some people or worse for others, I'm not sure on that, but at the very edge of the display I can see that it starts to blur off as you get to the very edge of the display there. So that's not perfect, honestly, but for the most part, where you're looking, where you're gaming, and where you're just consuming media in general, I don't think anybody would have too many complaints about that. But if you're perhaps using this for some kind of productivity work or something like that, and you need to see the far corners of a window that you've got open, for example, or something like that, then it might cause some issues. Now, it's not completely blurred or anything like that, but it does just go very slightly blurred, and I almost hesitate to say blurring. It's almost like a smoothing out of the image towards the edge where things are just not quite as clear there, really. But with regards to image quality as well, one of the other things that I noticed when I first put these on is because they are transparent and you can see your room as you look around, if you've not got very much on the display, so for example the Rokid logo that pops up at the beginning, it's just some text at the beginning and you've got your whole room to look around, I did find it actually quite difficult to focus on that text for some reason. It almost went to like double vision, and when there's not a lot on the screen, I found myself not quite able to focus in correctly. And it was only when the display was being utilized to its maximum, like when I'm playing the Steam Deck for example, then it was perfectly fine at that point. But I did notice it quite difficult to actually focus when there just wasn't too much on the screen itself. And my eyes were sort of struggling to focus on that or focus on the background of my room around me. But the glasses do come with these blinders as well. So you can just clip those on like that and then it closes off your view. So it makes content more immersive, honestly. And I found that I have been using these more than I expected. I expected to just use the sort of transparent view and then overlay the image onto my room, which is perfectly fine for most stuff. But I do find that I actually enjoy having these blinders on, and playing games you feel more immersed. When I'm lying in bed watching Netflix with these, I just like having the blinders on. It makes a big difference. But if you've got a darkened room or you're not in daylight and that kind of stuff, then these become less necessary, honestly. But they're still handy to have, and I have been using them more than I thought I would anyway. The audio is very good that's built into these. I would prefer if it went just that little bit louder. It's just sometimes not quite loud enough for me, and that's the only downside I would say. It's very clear, you've got, you know, very nice audio. It's not outstanding, it's not going to blow you away, but I would just wish it had that little extra boost in volume for certain things. But it's perfectly functional, and there's not too many complaints I've got about that. But let's get into a few of the things that I tried with these glasses. The first one, of course, is the one that came with them, which is the Rokid Station. And this is very easy to set up, and you just have access to an Android TV. There's not too much to say on this. It's very intuitive, very easy to use. The access to the apps is great. You've got hundreds of apps on there. The only thing, and quite a glaring omission, honestly, is the fact that it doesn't seem to have access to Netflix on the Play Store, which is included in this. So I'm sure there's reasons behind that, and I don't know what those reasons are, but it would be great to get Netflix on this as well, because that's one of the first things I look for, one of the first things I wanted to install on this device. But you've got YouTube, you've got Prime Video, and then access to loads of other, you know, standard Play Store apps, really. But Netflix does feel like a bit of an omission, which I struggle with. I really think it's important that they somehow get that on here. Now, alternatively, I don't know if it's possible to sort of sideload the APK directly onto this if you wanted to do that. I've not checked that out yet, but maybe I'll look into that and report back on my next video. So if you wanted to use this for gaming, then you can download the GeForce Now app. It's not something I've done. I've not got a GeForce Now account at the moment, although I know I could go on and try the free service just to try it, and maybe I'll do that on the next video too. But additionally, you can then pair something like an Xbox controller or a DualShock 4, and then you could play your PC games through GeForce Now, streaming them down and then playing them on this huge 215-inch display. It would be a great experience. So I'd need to try that out just to see how well it performs, but that it does have that capability as well. So I've also used my iPad Air quite a bit with this device. Now, when I did want to watch Netflix in bed, for example, which I've done quite a lot with this, I have to use the iPad. Now, regarding Apple products, if you've got an iPhone or something like that, you will be struggling to really get the benefit out of these glasses. Now, there are ways you can still use it. If you get the wireless adapter for this and connect it to your iPhone, then, you know, it's extra expense, but it will work. You can just about get it working. But with the iPad, it's got a USB-C connection. So with that, I can just connect these glasses directly into the USB-C on this iPad Air, which is the 2020 model, I think it is. And then I've all of a sudden got access to Netflix and all the other iPad stuff. You know, it basically mirrors the screen on a huge display in front of you. And that's what I've really been using a lot, really. And of course, you can use it for productivity use cases as well. And it works pretty much flawlessly. There's nothing that you need to do. It's just a screen mirror. So it's pretty basic, but it works, and it works really well. And then, of course, I've been using my Steam Deck quite a lot with these glasses as well. This was, as I mentioned, one of the first things I wanted to really try with this, because I was very excited to see the games that I'm playing on this, but rendered on that huge display in front of me. I've been playing, as mentioned, Doom 2016 a little bit on this, and it's a great experience. I do tend to use the blinders because when you've got all this action and you've got distractions from your background, now in a well-lit room, the display will be transparent. You'll see sort of transparency as you go through with this. So it works best in like a darkened room, but the blinders just take all of that hassle away, especially if you're gaming and you want to concentrate on the stuff that you're playing. So yeah, what a great experience. With the Steam Deck, pairing these glasses with the Steam Deck is a fantastic use case. You just plug it in, the USB-C automatically recognises it, and there it is. You've got the display in front of you. So highly recommended for use with the Steam Deck. And I did actually also quickly try some 3D movies on this. So I've got a network drive where I've got Star Wars Rise of Skywalker on there in 3D. So I sort of streamed that to these glasses as well. And it was a great experience, as you would expect, really. The 3D is really well done on this. You have to switch modes. You just hold down one of the buttons for a few seconds. You've got volume on it here and a brightness adjuster as well. And you just hold one of those down for a few seconds to switch between the different modes. You can also switch between the 60 Hz mode and the 120 Hz mode. But with the 3D, talking about the 3D specifically, you've got SBS side-by-side 3D and then over-under, and different types of content will utilize different versions of this. So it's capable of doing all of those things, and yeah, works great. No problems with the 3D at all. So as you've probably guessed, I do really like these actually, but we should probably talk about some of the downsides. When I first got these, I was looking through and you can see it's quite a narrow area where you look. When you've got the blinders on, they actually come down a little bit further and block off a little bit more of the area. And I would just love them to have a larger sort of viewing area, I suppose that's what I'm trying to say. But once you get used to them, it's not really a big deal, but it's just something that I immediately noticed, and I thought it was worth mentioning, just to say that when you first get them, these areas, these viewing areas do look a little bit narrow to me. They do also, when you're using them for any length of time, they will start to warm up here, and you can feel that. They don't get hot, but you'll notice that they do start to get warm after a while. So that's something else which some people might be more sensitive to than others, and if they don't like that sensation, then it might be a problem. But I didn't have an issue with it, but it was just something that I noticed as well. They do come with a couple of different nose pads as well, interchangeable, and I was trying to get the right fit for me as well on that. That took a few attempts. I think I've just about got it now, but sometimes there can be a little bit, you'll notice a little bit of weight, but the glasses in themselves, I've said, 75 grams, they're very light, so that's not really a huge issue either. The form factor overall is very nice, honestly. I think these do look pretty good. And I don't have an issue with them feeling uncomfortable after a while or anything like that. It's just really getting the right position for the nose pads, and then that slight thing with the heat, really. So brightness of the display, I touched on this a little bit earlier on, but when you are in a well-lit room, you'll notice that the display that is being rendered in front of you will have this element of transparency, and there's no getting around that really until we get really ultra bright displays that are capable of completely blocking off that kind of stuff. And even then, with transparent optics like this, there's difficulties around that either way. So I think that they're great, but they work best either in a slightly darkened room, a slightly darkened environment, or with the blinders, in my opinion. The other thing with image quality, as I've touched on before as well, is with the slight blurring on the very edge of the display. It's just a little bit annoying, really. It's not really that much of a problem, but it would be so much better if it was completely crystal clear all the way to the very edges of that. But I can't complain too much. It doesn't really affect my overall experience of what I've been using these for so far anyway. The only other thing to mention in this video, which is a first impressions video, I'll report back probably in a week or so when I've had some more time with these. But the important thing to say as well is with the price. So for the combination of both the glasses and with the Rokid Station itself, it's $529 at the moment, and I've seen it for £499 for that combination. And so they're not a cheap device. So really, would these be suitable for you? And it's a tough one to answer in terms of use cases, because I've used these more than I expected to over these past few days, because although I don't consider these kinds of video glasses sort of a gimmick or a novelty or anything like that, I don't consider them that. I also don't consider them true AR, and that's really what I want from a pair of glasses like this. But it's probably not fair to really judge these with that in mind. But then when you look at the price of what these are offering, you really need to make a decision based on how much you think you're going to use them. Now, I would probably say that if you find yourself in a position where the main TV in your house is always being used by somebody else in your family, and you just want access to a large screen, these offer that in a really fantastic way. Also, if you travel quite a lot, I think that these could offer a real benefit for that as well. Just going away, I can envision myself just going away with my Steam Deck and these glasses, and all of a sudden in a hotel room or something like that, I've got access to this huge display to play all of these games on. It would be a great experience. So that would be if you feel like that would be a use case that you would utilize these for on a regular basis, then I think that they would offer a certain value for money with regards to that. I can't make the judgment on whether these are really worth that. It really comes down to how much you travel, how much you find yourself wanting access to a large display anywhere. That's really what it comes down to. And if that is a lot, then these will offer actually pretty good value for that, because they do it in a really good way. I'm impressed with these. I'll need to spend a bit more time with them, and I'll report back in a video, as I mentioned, next week probably, sometime, or maybe the following week. I want to dive into these a lot more. But they are something that is sort of immediately impressive, very easy to sort of get started with and stuff like that. So really enjoying them, but I'll let you know a little bit more in my next video. But thank you very much for watching this one, and I'll see you next time.